Today, India's security threat doesn't arise from warships, but from a blockage in the shipping route. Because if major choke points like Hormuz or Malacca are impacted, India faces an immediate economic shock. Interestingly, many of these risks were recognized before they were formally articulated and combined into a maritime doctrine. For over a century, the maritime strategy was simpler: control the seas and you influence the globe. That's what strategists like Alfred Mahan believed. So, major powers focused on bigger navies, stronger fleets, and greater control. But today, the maritime strategy has evolved because now global trade is deeply interconnected. Energy flows through narrow and vital choke points, and disruption in those routes travel faster than ships. So, even without a naval battle, a choke point disturbance can hit economies immediately. And this is where a well rounded maritime vision helps. Not because the older strategy is wrong, but because it's no longer sufficient on its own. Today, it's not just about controlling the seas, it's about something more complex: keeping maritime systems functioning even when they are under pressure. Indian maritime strategy has already been responding to this shift. For years, the country has been building ports, developing island infrastructure, strengthening domestic shipbuilding, and expanding partnerships. But these efforts sometimes appeared like separate pieces, like parallel initiatives, rather than one comprehensive strategy. That's where Mahasagar comes in. Introduced in 2025 by the Government of India, the Mahasagar Doctrine doesn't reinvent India's maritime strategy. Rather, Mahasagar formalizes and organizes it. The doctrine builds on earlier frameworks like Sagar, expanding India's scope from regional security to a key player in Indo-Pacific region and the global south. The vision expands its efforts in economic resilience, connectivity, and partnership. It brings together infrastructure, industries, naval capability, and partnerships under one clear organizing pillar: maritime resilience. Because real power depends on whether a nation can keep trade flowing, absorb disruptions, and maintain stability. Increasingly, this also depends on technology. From maritime surveillance systems to real time tracking to interconnected logistic networks, modern sea power is digital, networked, and constantly monitored. Now, look at what has happened globally. Tensions in the West Asia, uncertainty around Strait of Hormuz pushes oil prices up, disturbs LPG imports, affects shipping and freight costs, affects oil and energy, and creates a dent in the pocket of the common man and shakes economies. So, the real question is no longer, can a country control the sea? It's this: can it maintain stability when it's disrupted? Now, connect this back to India. Take the Great Nicobar project. It's not just a port, it's positioned near one of the busiest choke points in the world, the Malacca Strait, which means with careful planning and adopting environmentally sustainable practices, this project may not eliminate dependency on choke points, but India will gain more logistical control over crucial choke points, increase monitoring capacity, and more flexibility. Similarly, the 2026 naval exercises like Milan and the International Fleet Review brings together major countries. That's not just optics, that's building a network. And initiatives like Indian Ocean ship deployments combine security, humanitarian aid, joint training, and collaborations. These efforts allow India to monitor and respond more effectively. Even the blue economy, that is, sustainable use of sea and coastal resources for economic growth, fit into this because the more diversified your maritime economy is, the more resilient it becomes, and the more technologically integrated it is, the better it can function under pressure. So, the real story is not that India changed its strategy, it's that India gave a structure to what it was already doing, from independent initiatives to coordinated capability. Yet, the vision's transformation into reality is not easy. It depends on how well everything is combined because the regulation of maritime system spreads across multiple ministries from defense, commerce, shipping and external affairs. If they work together, it reduces the fragmentation of efforts. At the same time, ambitious infrastructure projects like the Great Nicobar depend on environmental clearances, long term funding, and stakeholders' commitment. Then there is technology. We have seen emphasis on Make in India for domestic manufacturing and technology innovation. Still, several critical parts such as propulsion systems and maritime surveillance partly rely on the external suppliers. The real challenge is not about the effectiveness of doctrine or building capabilities, but sustaining and coordinating it. Today, maritime power depends on not just control but continuity. Looking ahead, the success of this approach will depend on how efficiently India can enhance its infrastructure, build industrial and technological capacity, and deepen maritime partnerships all at the same time. Because in this evolving maritime order, resilience may prove as decisive as command. And this is what Mahasagar Vision is truly about. It positions India not just as a regional security player in Indian Ocean region, but as a reliable partner in the competitive Indo-Pacific domain and a stabilizing force in the global south.